Hello there. Good afternoon, everybody. Want to welcome you all here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph, and I am the host of this show. So we're here with the mini series that we started on Monday, and we're now on to Thursday. So episode number 4 of Where Did I Hear That? Yes. So basically, I've picked 5 bands. All of them I like quite a bit, and all well-known bands. And I picked out 5 albums from other bands that I think sound like them. That's basically what we're doing here. So the band I've chosen for today is Led Zeppelin. A couple albums here. The debut album and Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. Now I chose these 2 albums for a specific reason. So to me, this is a very heavy bluesy album right at the start of Zeppelin's career. This one is a much more developed album, I guess maybe you might want to call it. It's got a lot of that kind of Indian sound to it. It's more moved along, heavier at times as well, and also maybe a little faster pace at times as well for Led Zeppelin anyways. So I decided on Led Zeppelin as one of these bands, not so much because they're one of my top 5 or 10 bands or something like that, but because I was online looking for a band, trying to decide which bands to do, and there was a article when people say bands that sound like Led Zeppelin, and there was a guy in there who's went on for like half a page saying there's no bands that sound like Led Zeppelin, and we have to just get over it. It's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Nobody sounds like them. Well, I think he's definitely wrong there. There's quite a few bands that have a large amount of Zeppelin. Some bands are almost better at sounding like Zeppelin than Zeppelin was. So sometimes I think he thinks that we weren't living in reality, but in fact, I think it's him that isn't living in reality. If a band really wants to sound like another band, they can. They just have to work at it. That's really the way I see it. Every single episode we've done up to this point, there's been at least one album in that group that sounds almost more like the band than the band itself. So we're going to start off first with, I'm going to do the same thing I did with yesterday's Pink Floyd one and Tuesday's Yes one when I decided to do the album I don't have by this band. This is a band I kind of like, but for whatever reason, I haven't gotten around to getting any of their albums. The band is called Rival Sons, and the album I've chosen today is called Dark Fighter. So this album has a couple of things about it that make me feel like when I'm listening to them, I'm hearing Zeppelin. They've got some of that slow drawl type bluesy stuff going on this album. You also have some of those keyboard parts that are kind of a little bit psychedelic, which is a little bit common to some of the other Zeppelin albums. Maybe not so much the 2 I've chosen here, but some of those other Zeppelin albums, which when John Paul Jones plays this almost psychedelic keyboard sound, this band has a little bit of that going on as well. And there's a couple of songs here that really kind of rock out, which really sound very Zeppelinish. So that's my first choice, the Rival Sons, Dark Fighter. Now we're going to go into some more familiar territory. We'll save the most like at the end. So next one up is Rush's debut album. Long been considered to be a very Zeppelinish album. I personally don't hear Zeppelin here. Well, I do hear Zeppelin here, but not as much as people would say. You got What You're Doing, very similar to Zeppelin 2, very similar. Here again, another song, very, very Zeppelinish as well. The other songs, really kind of different. I think a lot of the difference is because of Geddy Lee's voice, really different sounding than Robert Plant, of course. But there are moments on this album where you can close your eyes and hear Zeppelin playing here. So yeah, definitely Rush's debut album is one of those albums. Next up, a band that's very different from Rush, but also a trio from Canada. I haven't talked much about these guys lately, but this album to me, very Zeppelin. It's got a bit of a Zeppelin feel to it, and I think it's the music itself. It's not the voice. The voice kind of has a Doorsy sound to it. Sounds like Jim Morrison, but the songs with all that Indian sound, very much like Kashmir on this particular album. It's got that Kashmir sound to it. The whole album has a lot of that, and whenever I hear this album, I think Zeppelin with a different vocal part. So yeah, the Tea Party, Canadian band, very, very Zeppelin-ish in a lot of ways. When I first heard these guys many years ago, I thought, wow, that guy sounds like Jim Morrison. So they're doing something few, if any, bands have done, and that's combined the Doors and Zeppelin. Okay, the next band, she doesn't sound like Robert Plant at all, at least not in vocal sound, but definitely in the way she delivers the songs and the way the band plays its music, at least early on in their career. This is Heart. And this particular album I chose, I could have, I guess, chose Dreamboat Annie, but this album, I think, has has more of the Zeppelin sound and maybe a little bit less of the Jethro Tull sound that you got on some of the songs on Dreamboat Annie. There's none of that here. This has, Barracuda aside, the rest of the album, or Kick It Out aside, the rest of this album, Dream of the Archer, Little Queen, Say Hello, Cry to Me, Go On and Cry. These songs all have Zeppelin-ish sounds to them. And this album, to me, is just a version of a Zeppelin, a female version of a Zeppelin, I guess, if you want to call it. I like the kind of medieval type of thing they're trying to capture here, too, which also gives that kind of Zeppelin feel to it. So Heart's Dream, I almost said it again. Little Queen, that's my next choice. So the final one on my list is an album. It's actually an EP. I haven't got any of their albums yet, but this one's quite good. In some ways, this vocalist sounds more like Robert Plant than Robert Plant sounds like Robert Plant. And it's more like this album than the first one. And it's Greta Van Fleet from The Fires. This whole band, all of their albums, very Zeppelin sounding. I've had guys argue that they don't sound like Zeppelin, and I'm saying, well, you're not hearing the same thing I'm hearing then, because this guy's voice is more like Robert Plant's on some of these tracks than Robert Plant's voice is like Robert Plant. He really has that sound down, and the music fits in there with that Indian kind of slower paced Zeppelin of the later years. Then doesn't sound as much like the Led Zeppelin 1 or 2, but does sound a lot more like the later Zeppelin, I think. The physical graffiti and presence type thing. Anyway, this is a really good, especially songs like Meet on the Ledge. Really great song. This whole album is quite good. Black Smoke Rising, very good. So from The Fires, Greta Van Fleet is my last choice for the Zeppelin. So I'll give them to you back. So we'll start by giving you back the Rival Sons, Dark Fighter. Definitely, they've got 7 or 8 studio albums. Love to have them all. I think they're just a fantastic band. Greta Van Fleet, and from The Fires, Heart's Little Queen, Tea Party's The Edge of Twilight. I think I forgot to mention that one. I did say it, but Edge of Twilight by the Tea Party, another Canadian band. And then, of course, Rush's debut album from 1974. So those are my 5 choices for Zeppelin sound-alikes. And where did I hear that? Well, I heard it right here. So anyways, we will see you all tomorrow for the final episode of this series, which will be featuring none other than Rush. We're going to go to Rush again, and I've got plenty for that as well. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. Please hit the like and subscribe. If you want to make any comments about Led Zeppelin or their music or any of these bands that I chose or these albums I chose, you can. Or if you have somebody else who you really like, who you think has a Zeppelin sound to their music, you can throw them in there too. Anyways, take care. Have yourself a good evening, and goodbye here from the Prog Monster.